Cool. So first of all, thank you very, very much to Scott for joining us today as a and welcome to the IO Virtual .NET Meetup. Just as an introduction, I'm Michael, and alongside Deepak will be hosting this today, who work for IO Associates. For those who don't know, we're an IT recruitment agency, but so if any of us interested in chatting to us about our roles or anything, just give us a shout. But also, I know you guys aren't here to listen to us today, so yeah, thank you very much, Scott, for joining us. Who's going to give me this talk on .NET 5 and .NET 6 and .NET 5? Got it all around. But Scott said it's okay to ask questions in the chat throughout. But if you could just remain on silent, on mute throughout. But yeah, enjoy, and I will stop sharing now and hand over to you, Scott.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yes. No worries. Thanks,
for both of you for inviting me, and let's have fun here today. So let's see if I can share my screen. Let me know if that comes through.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, got it. Plus.
So I'll just let everybody know that we're just kind of blessed that I just did a kickoff at the Microsoft MVP Summit yesterday, and it's the first time that we showed some of the bits from .NET 6, and so I'm going to let you guys see the same stuff that I showed yesterday to all those folks. If you want to follow me outside of here, I'm on Twitter at CoolCSH. And for those that don't know me, I joined Microsoft back in 2007. I joined the ASP.NET team. And then when Scott Guthrie was promoted to move into the Azure organization, he took all the web tech, which included ASP.NET and the tooling for ASP.NET into Azure with him. And so I went to Azure from 2010 to 2016. And then 2016, I moved back into developer division, and now I work on all of .NET. And today, let's talk about .NET a little bit. First off, if we look at our ecosystem, we have over 5 million .NET developers that we can measure through the Visual Studio family of tools. You might know this already. We are the #1 most loved framework on Stack Overflow in 2019 and 2020. One of the coolest ones to me is the Cloud Native Foundation actually runs a thing where they look at the open source projects in GitHub and sees how active they are. What they do is they measure the number of issues, pull requests, comments, and stuff like that happen in GitHub. ASP.NET is in the top 30, and .NET is in the top 5, which is pretty cool that we are one of the most active projects in GitHub. C# is the #5 language in GitHub. And the performance has been a huge thing for .NET for many years now, and we're over 10 times faster than Node.js. This kind of really highlights the Tech and Power benchmark. You can see the Java servlets at 2.17 million. We're at 7, and Nodes at 660,000. What's even cooler is as we've been adding new features to .NET, we added gRPC in .NET Core 3.1. gRPC is kind of a modern replacement for WCF, except it's cross-platform. It works across all the languages. And you can see that .NET is the second fastest gRPC implementation in the world, faster than Java, C++, and Go. We think we're actually faster than Rust, but they ran this benchmark before we shipped .NET 5. If you look all up, .NET Core and .NET 5 now make up, MAU stands for monthly access users. And you can see that we have over 2.4 million of our 5 million, well, it's more than 5 million, but we're at a point almost where the new technology is going to overtake in usage the older technology. You can see that 77,000 brand new .NET 5 developers in February. And you can also see that in the cloud, we start seeing .NET Core and .NET 5 be the predominant thing that you see here. The chart on the left is just showing you how much growth .NET has versus the newer tech. And you can see the newer tech is starting to take a big lead there. Now, next thing is, why move your existing apps to .NET 5? Well, obviously you get flexible deployment, meaning that, we support multiple .NETs on the box. You can put .NET in your application in the same folder as your application. If you want to have your own self-contained version, you can even do single exe. Obviously you get unparalleled performance, which then makes your infrastructure and hosting costs go down. And then, unlike .NET Framework, all the new innovation will happen in the .NET 5 Plus world. Now, something you might not have seen, or maybe you did see it, we just shipped this a few weeks ago. And this is a new piece of tech we have called the .NET Upgrade Assistant. And what it does is it makes it easier to move an older code base to .NET 5. Today it supports the WinForm WPF and the MVC Web API stacks. It does not support web forms right now, but that's something we're working on. And what it is we used to have a bunch of smaller tools that you could use to go and try this stuff. And now we have it built into a single experience. And I'll do a demo of this in just a few minutes here. But it's, if you have an older project and you want to convert it, it'll convert the projects, it'll retarget, it'll fix your package graph. It'll do some code fix-ups if you have an MVC style application. It's a tool we built internally as we went and helped some of our customers migrate. Well, let's just try and see if I can do this. So I'm actually zooming from multiple computers, and we're going to see if this is going to let me switch the screen share. You cannot start screen share while other participant is sharing. So let me try to stop this screen share. I'm going to stop that one. And I'm going to see if I can start this one. It's going to let me work. It's going to do it.
Scott, I might be able to change on the settings where you can share. Sorry to interrupt, but you can share while someone else is sharing as well, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, do that.
And I've just done that now, so see if that might be able to work now.
Okay, so now I'm on my laptop. And if I look at my laptop, first off, we have this old Scott Hanselman app called Baby Smash. And if you look at this, let me minimize some stuff. If you look at this, you can see this thing is like 13 years old. It's an old WinForm WPF application. And I've actually cloned it to my box. In fact, I even have it running in VS. Here it is running in VS. I can right click on it. I can show properties. You're going to see this app is going to be a targeting 461. And it's a WinForm WPF app. So what I can do is I can come over here. Do I actually have that? I don't. And cheat a little bit. So all you do is you take the command and you pass it to CSproj or the solution file that you want to upgrade. And then what's going to do is it's going to go and do a bunch of stuff for me automatically. It's going to first say, do you want to back up? In this case, I can always clone this from GitHub, so I'm not going to back it up. I'm going to skip the backup. And I'll just start applying things here. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to run try convert. It's one of the tools we have that converts an old style CSproj to a new style CSproj. Let that run. I'll do this too. And you can see it's now converted my project file successfully to the new style. There we go. I'll press return to run the next step. And this, what it's going to do here, it's going to add a new package to my project. And what this is a series of analyzers that will help you find things you should change in your code. So if there's things that need to be upgraded, like in an MVC application, this analyzer will help you make those changes. Next thing is we're going to retarget the app. So now the app's going to go and retarget to .NET 5. And then the next thing is it's going to look at the app and see the app uses some Windows APIs that are not in .NET 5. And so it's going to add the Microsoft Windows compatibility pack to that. And it's going to remove some references that aren't even needed anymore. And then it's going to go through my config file. It's going to go take all the, we change configuration in .NET 5, .NET Core, and .NET 5 completely. It's going to remove the old ones that don't make sense anymore. And then I am basically done. We'll do the finalize the update. And this application has now been ported from .NET Framework to .NET 5. In my VS here, reload all. And if I go look at the application, you can now see it's targeting .NET 5. It almost will build. Once again, these types of tools are never going to be perfect. And so if I go and do a build here, we're going to find that the app is still actually trying to use a bunch of old tech that's no longer supported. I don't care about that. Go here. Basically, it's going to say, hey, look here, you're using some stuff that we didn't bring this part of ClickOnce over to the new app, so it doesn't want that. I'm just going to go nuke all of these things completely. Close that out. Don't need that anymore. Just trying to show this real. It, apps are going to still require a little bit of work. Nuke this. And then there's a few more of these deployment things I need to wipe out, and then we're going to be good to go. I think I can kill that whole block. Nuked too much stuff. Nuked too many braces there. Or not enough braces, actually. There we go. And how are we doing now? I can't believe if this fails on me, I'm gonna hate myself. There we go. Don't need any of that junk anymore. We down to nothing broken. One more of these. Kill the else too. There we go. We have a compiling application. We run it. And we just took an old winform WPF application and converted it with the try convert tool, or the upgrade assistant tool. So pretty cool. And so I would ask you to try this, give us feedback, let us know how this works. And as I said, we use it internally a lot for some of our real customers. And so your mileage may vary, but I think it will do some pretty cool stuff. Okay, so let me go back to my other machine. And thank you for letting me have the permissions. It works fine now. Next thing is let's talk about release schedules. So this is showing basically, we have the LTS and the current builds. We ship every November, really kind of starting this last November. That's when this really kicks off because 3.1 shipped in December. But the idea is you always know when the next release is going to come, and we have the long-term support and the current releases. As part of this, the only difference between these releases is the LTS is 3 years of patching, the non-LTS is 15 months of patching. That said, this is something that we see. I only have this on the slide because inside of Microsoft, we even have teams that are like, yeah, I took the .NET Core 3.1 in December of 2019, and they've not applied any of the patches. In modern software, you should be applying patches every month. And you can see here that we've got 3.1.2, 3.1.12 is the latest version, and 5.04 are the latest versions. To get support, you have to be on those versions. The quality of these releases are exactly the same. There was a belief that the LTSs had better quality. That is not true. The quality is exactly the same. There is no difference between them at all. And the idea is you can decide what you want to do. You can leave .NET Core 3.1 globally on a machine and then ship an application with .NET 5 self-installed if you want. And that's the goal here is to give you choices. Something that you might not have heard of is in December, we actually added support for automatic patching on Windows. It used to be that we would, .NET Framework was upgraded through Windows Update. This tech is updated through Microsoft Update because it's no longer part of Windows. All of the currently supported versions, 2.1, 3.1, and 5 are supported with this. What'll happen is we patch in place, which means all the apps on the machine will roll forward to the new version that we put on. And this only applies to a .NET you globally install. If you make a self-contained exe or you put .NET in your project, this upgrade will not apply to you. And organizations can turn this on or off on their own whim. So it's giving people that wanted the ability to manage the machines the chance to do that. Now let's talk about .NET 6. We'd hoped to do all this in .NET 5, but COVID happened. And we kind of scaled back .NET 5 a little bit. We plan to finish the unification of .NET. And the intent here is I've got one SDK that lets me build all of the workloads, whether it's desktop, whether it's Xamarin, whether it's web. There's one BCL. So if you don't know, if you build a Xamarin app today, it's actually running the mono BCL. Early versions of Blazor, WASM used the mono BCL as well. But in .NET 5, we moved Blazor WASM to the same core BCL we use everywhere else. And in .NET 6, all the Xamarin projects will also move to the same core BCL. The Xamarin projects will also move to the new simplified project system that we have, the new CS projects. And we think at this point, we're going to have awesome cross-platform native UI with .NET MAUI. We're going to have awesome cross-platform web UI with Blazor. And there's a new flavor of Blazor that I'm going to tell you about today as well. We've always had great support for building, microservices and containers and stuff, and that'll continue. And then, more perf and stuff will come as well. Now, let's talk about some of the real big performance improvements. So one of the things that became clear to us at the end of .NET 5 was, if you look at us benchmark full stack wise, we have the best performance of any runtime out there today for the most part. I mean, there's places where Rust or Go might beat us, but if you're looking at general purpose, web, desktop, AI, whatever, we have an amazing performance. But I will be very honest, our inner loop, and what inner loop means to us is that's the time that you make a change in your editor and it reflects in your actual application. Our inner loop is garbage. And it's been a Java and .NET both have been, and C++ are three technologies that all have bad inner loops. And we think for us to compete with the newer techs, we have to fix this. And so on the left, you can see some of the build improvements we've already done in the previews of .NET 6, where you're seeing clean builds and incremental builds much faster in .NET 6. And there's still tons of work we're going to do there, but we're going to take this to the next step, the next level. We're going to do hot reload everywhere. That means hot reload is when you change the code and you don't have to restart your running application. We've supported hot reload in the XAML editor for WPF. We've supported it in the XAML editor for Xamarin applications, but now we're bringing it to ASP.NET, Blazor, WinForms, any .NET project. And I'm going to demo this in a second, and it'll become very clear to you. There is no process restart, and the app will actually maintain state. So you can actually, this is a super version of edit continue. If you want, add the debugger after the fact. Get your app running. Oh, I want to put a breakpoint in, then attach the debugger. Without having to go and open a dialog or whatever, just put the breakpoint in and click a button and we'll attach the debugger. And this is an evolution of edit and continue. So let me show you this. This is something I showed yesterday, and it blew people away. So this is pretty nifty stuff. So here we are back on my machine, and I've got two folders here. Let me resize. There you go. I've got two folders here. I've got one that's going to be my hot reload .NET 5 application. So let's start there. I'm going to do .NET watch, and I need to tell everybody first for these demos. These bits are so hot that they don't work in any of our editors, whether it's VS or VS Code. And so I have to use Notepad for these right now, but the editor support will happen in the May timeframe when we get closer to the build conference. So I'm going to run .NET Watch. And if you don't know what .NET Watch is, it's a command line version of our tech that runs the application and then watches for code changes and restarts the application. So let's take this, and I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, stick it over here. And I'm going to go to the counter page. You've probably all seen this Blazor demo. Yeah. Seen it forever. Now let me go grab a notepad. And let's find the 5 version of this. Let's just talk about the changes here. I'll make a change. And now I'm going to press save. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. Okay, 3.5 seconds to make that change. Yuck. Let me click the button here. It goes up a few. Let's make another code change. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4. Okay, but current counter went back to 0. That's because we restarted the process. This is how .NET works today. And we get feedback from Blazor developers especially that this is slow and cumbersome and not a great experience. So let's fix it. So what I'll do now is I'll close that tab. I'll stop this. And I'll just close this folder out. Now we're in the .NET 6 version of the folder. And let's run this again. And remember, this tech is going to work in every .NET project type. This is not a Blazor thing. This is a .NET thing. So here we are. And we're in the same kind of style here. And let me make a change. So I'm going to press save now. And nothing happened. What did I do? Oh, it would help if I'm in a counter. Let's try this again. I'm going to press save now. Now. So if you saw that, that is instantaneous. That is sub 1 second change. Even with Zoom and all this other junk running on my machine, sub 1 second changes to the app. Fast. I'm going to press save right now. I think that is just crazy. Let's do this. Counter's now at 10. I'm going to make that same change over here. Plus equal 2. I'm going to save it. The counter still says 10. And so this is the new hot reload support that's coming in .NET 6. Instantaneous changes to your application. As I said, this works in WinForms, WPF, ASP.NET, Blazor, all the applications will just update instantaneously. That's one of the coolest features that I think we have in .NET 6. So let me close that out and we'll go back to the slides. I hope people thought that was amazing. I'll look at the chat after we finish with the .NET 6 demos. I will come look at the chat and we can see what people thought of that. Okay, what's next? So this is something that we've been playing with for a while, which is one of the things we hear, when you compare .NET to say Node.js or .NET to Go, you have to realize when we built ASP.NET, we built it for enterprise developers. We built it for people that had huge applications with hundreds of pages or hundreds of APIs. And as a result, .NET is not the easiest thing to go pick up and start using. ASP.NET is not the easiest thing to go pick up and start using. We've got controller folders, we've got a program.cs, a startup.cs, we got lots of stuff. And one of the things we wanted to do as we started the .NET Core journey years ago is remap all of our technology so we could actually give you a different model for building the same types of apps. And so the code you see on the left is literally the code you have to use to write a web API in .NET 6. Notice that first off, there is no main, because with C# that we introduced in .NET 5, we added top-level programs, which does not require a main. There's no class. This is literally just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code It looks very similar to how you would get started in something like Node. And this is by intent. You can start here if you want. And by the way, this is using still real MVC. This will do model binding. It'll do all of our return types. It's actually using the same routing, the same exact technology that an MVC or a web API app uses today. It's just a simpler way of looking at it. So if you look at this, there's no ceremony, using top level programs, chunk all that away. You can grow this right up to controllers if you want. Imagine right clicking on that map get and saying, turn that into an action on a controller, and we just do that map for you. It'll be available in .NET 6. And I'll switch to my laptop and do a quick demo of some of this stuff. All the refactoring we did as we built .NET Core kind of enabled us to get to this state. So let me close this out. And the way I like to think of this is, let's actually just bring up a VS. And I actually put a Web API 5 in here. Just to highlight the point, this is what our traditional web API looks like today. And just imagine if you're a brand new programmer or you're coming from Node.js or something into .NET, and the first thing that you see is, wow, first off, I've got a program, and inside of it, I've got a class program, I've got a main, we've got some junk inside of there. I've got all of this stuff, and then I've got a controller folder, and inside of there, I've got my hello world. That's a lot of concepts, and it makes .NET look complicated. So let's go look at the same app again with Feather. And by the way, the Feather is just a name, it's gonna go away. This is this exact same application that you just saw in Feather. There's two usings. We create the application, we run the map get, and we run async. And I think this even, there you go. Hello world comes out. This is using all the same technology. We just let you stitch it together in a slightly different way than we did before. And this is Feather. There's a more real example that I've got here as well. And by the way, we're still working on some of this, so I'll be very clear that this is going to bring back the main. We're going to chunk that main away still, but this is 3 files. First off, there is a to-do item, and so it's just a class. There's a DB context because I want to be able to store these in a database. But the actual API is just right here. I boot up my web application. I map API to-dos to get to-dos with an ID. Once again, using the same routing syntax you would use for web API today to get to do. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I map the 5 APIs, and then I run the application. And you see each of these APIs is just the simple. And notice they return tasks and all. They take context. They do all the things that you would get in a regular application today. And so this is something we think is exciting as a way to make it simple to write simple APIs and not require all the ceremony unless you need it. If you're building a huge app with 100 APIs, then this is probably not right for you. But if you're building a smaller app with some smaller APIs, we think it's a pretty cool way to do it. And that is Feather. Next, let's talk about .NET Multi-Platform App UI, or what we're going to call .NET MAUI. And what this is an evolution of Xamarin Forms. Some of the feedback we get from Xamarin has always been, well, it feels like it's a bolt-on to .NET. It's not really there. And so we are rebranding, reimagining Xamarin as being built into the .NET SDK. And so you can see here, cross-platform native UI. And the cool thing about MAUI is it takes advantage of the latest UI tech on all the platforms. So you can see on Windows, it's going to be using WinUI 3, which is the latest library that the Windows team has built for building applications on Windows. If you're on a Mac, before you could build a Mac application, but it was much harder in Xamarin because you had to use different tech in many cases. Well, Apple now has built something called Catalyst, and it runs on the latest versions of the Mac OS, And it's a way that you can actually take an app that was originally written for iOS and make it run on a Mac. It gives you the controls to make it where, hey, there's no touch on the Mac. So there's ways to do all the things that you would touch on iOS on the Mac. Many of the apps on a Mac today, like the Map app, the News app, those apps are the Messages app. Those apps are all Catalyst apps. And so we're going to make it very easy to basically take your Maui app and run it using Mac Catalyst. We, of course, will always support iOS and Android as well. So you get all of those platforms. A change from Xamarin is this will be a single project. So if you're used to a Xamarin project today, and you'll see some of my demos today, I might still have the multi-project thing. You'll be able to have one project with one code base, and then all you'll do is you'll right-click and say deploy to iOS, right-click deploy to Android, right-click deploy to Mac, right-click deploy to Windows. And this is also the first time we've actually supported the Mac officially. So this is pretty cool as well. So we finally support all four of these types. And this will show up in .NET 6. So what I'm going to do now is these bits are crazy live too. So let me switch to my Mac. And this is going to require, give me 1 second to. This is a brand new Mac, and so I've not turned on all the security settings. There we go. I'm going to have to quit Zoom and come back in, so I'll be right back on the Mac. Okay. Second here.
Thank you.
Okay, as soon as they let me in. Cool. So now I can share my screen on the Mac. Okay, cool. And so on the Mac, let's take a look at this. There we go. And let's show a couple of new things here. So on the Mac, what I've got here is I will move down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a .NET new. This is with an internal build of .NET 6. And what you're going to see for the first time is, look here, here is all the typical Xamarin workloads. Here's an Android application. Here is this new .NET Maui application. So first time ever being in the command line tools, I can just do .NET new Maui. And notice it says the list of templates was synchronized with the optional SDK because we don't actually, we're also taking all the, we're going to take a lot of the workloads out of the SDK and they'll be optional. Like this is one of the optional workloads. Now I've got an app. Once again, I don't have tools. I don't have VS Code support or VS for Mac support right now. So I'm just going to run this kind of manually. But I just want to show that, for the first time ever, without having VS for Mac or any of that tech, I can actually do a .NET new. And I can run a Maui app right here. There you go. And so, around build time, this support will show up in Visual Studio for Windows and VS Code, and then it'll be in VS for Mac later this year. And so that is Maui. And I've got one more demo for .NET 6, and then I can take some questions, and then we can show some other tech. Okay, so Blazor. So one of the things that we've all noticed, and I know everybody on the calls has seen this, is, in the last couple of years, there's been this rise of using web technologies to build desktop applications. You know, like for example, if you've used Visual Studio Code, that's an Electron application. If you use Microsoft Teams, that's an Electron application. Slack is an Electron application. And companies do this because it means they can write the UI once in web and then share it across all the desktops, or even mobile clients as well. One of the things that, you know, you might say, well, you can do this with Blazor today. You can just build a PWA. Well, yeah, you can build a PWA, but a PWA doesn't have access to the operating system. These Electron applications like VS Code can obviously see the file system on your machine, so you can edit those files. If you're using something like Teams, you know, Microsoft Teams is using native DLLs to actually, for each platform, to encode and decode audio and video. And it's calling real Win32 APIs. One of the things I think I was told in a meeting one day was, even though we think of Microsoft Teams as being a webby kind of thing, the native version of it has like 50,000 Win32 calls in it. And so what we want to do is we want to take a MAUI app, which can run both on the Windows device and on a Mac device. And we're going to add a new control that you can put inside of a MAUI app, and that's a Blazor control. And with that Blazor control, that gives you a web app, Electron style, but it's all .NET. And we already know that we can be smaller in memory, we can be better in performance than the tech that powers an Electron app today. And so this lets you reuse UI components across native and web. It's built on top of .NET multi-platform app UI MAUI. If you want, we actually have an SDK for this tech. You can actually inject a Blazor application into a WinForm or WPF project as well. So we're going to give you the native hooks to put it into you could put it into a console project technically. And so it has access to both the native, device and any of the controls. And this will ship in .NET 6. My demo for this one's a little hacky because these bits won't come really live until build. But let's show it real quick. So I'm going to close my Feather app here, and I'm going to load up my XPlat. And so what this is going to be a MAUI application, or a Xamarin Desktop application is what I guess I could call it. And so let's take a look at this. Make that go away. As I'm here, first off, let's run it and show you what you get. You can see here is the main Blazor application. And today, because I don't have, the final bits, I still have the two projects. I have the Windows project and the Mac project. We'll erase all that when we're done, and it'll just be a XPlat desktop weather application. And it'll have a Blazor app that kind of runs inside of it. If I run the app, let's give it a second. This is a native desktop app. It's going to look just like a regular Blazor application because it's the default Blazor app, but we spiced up the fetch data page quite a bit here. Notice that it's got colors and pictures and some other stats and stuff like that. But look here, there's this button, set desktop wallpaper, and and that button exists because I want to show you that. Go. There's my desktop today. I've got a tent. Let's click this. If it fails, I will die. Oh, my machine's pissed off now. Oh, the app died. That was supposed to change my background. Let me show you how it works. This is the actual fetch data page. And on my fetch data page, notice this is where the button, on click set wallpaper. Yes, I know. It calls the set wallpaper. Set wallpaper then is down here. It goes and grabs the image, and then it calls the desktop wallpaper service. And what that is literally an interface that we dependency inject in the application. It's just an interface that has a set wallpaper. And then what I do is I build a Windows version of it, which calls Win32 APIs to set my background. And then there's a Mac version of it that does the same thing on the Mac. And depending on which of these apps I'm running in, you'll see here's the Windows desktop wallpaper service on the Windows app. The Mac app will have the Mac desktop wallpaper service inside of it. So you can see where you write the native code for each of the platforms. And let me try it one more time and see if it'll cooperate this time. I don't know why I didn't. I just did this demo yesterday. Oh, I think something happened this time. There you go. So there's a Blazor application that has access to the full computer. And as a result, it could set my background. And so we already have customers that are doing this today. This building native Blazor desktop applications was kind of inspired by a dry cleaning company that builds tech for a dry cleaner service. And they had built their entire app in VB6 and they modernized it to Blazor. But they needed the app to be able to have access to the cash register, a wall display, and the machine that kind of makes the clothes go around in circles and stuff like that. And they could have obviously tried to make those all services in the cloud or something like that. But they just wanted access to the native tech. And so they took Blazor, put it inside a WPF application. And we saw a lot of other people that were doing the same thing using electron.net. And so we're just going to build it into the platform. So with that, I'll stop sharing and I will come off this and see if I can take a couple of questions. I'm going to scroll up the list and see what all we have in here. So the question was faster than Go and C++. This is about the gRPC demo. Yes, it is faster than Go and C++. And that's because we have heavily optimized the IO pathways in .NET, and we can beat Rust the same way. And so that's from James Bond. Love the name. And that is a true comparison. That benchmark is, I will send Michael and Deepak the slides, and they're happy to share the slides with you. There are links where you can see the result of that benchmark that's run by a third-party person that does not even, that benchmark was not run by us. That's run by a person that maintains a gRPC benchmark site. We were not faster than those technologies in .NET Core 3.1, but we are in 5, and we'll take another improvement in I see there's somebody to talk about it. Web Forms is a big blocker for us currently to migrate. Obviously for Web Forms, the migration path to Web Forms is typically going to be to Blazor. That's the closest conceptual mapping to Web Forms. Jeff Fritz, I don't know if you've seen this, you can Google it, Jeff Fritz, Web Forms and Blazor. He's actually been building an open source project that takes a bunch of the Web Forms controls and writes Blazor versions of the controls. And with that, it makes it easier to port a web form application to Blazor because the same button controls and drop-down list and stuff like that exists. The migration tool plans to take a stab at web forms in the future as well, but it will require more work. And love Andy's comment about Baby Smash. It's kind of funny that how old that application is, and there's still YouTube videos you can find of that application. How does the upgrade tool compare to the AWS porting assistant for .NET? We think it's actually a better tool than the AWS tool. We have actually met the AWS team. We did a call with them a few weeks ago, so we are in chat with them. They were kind of hoping that from their tool that the community would help put more stuff into it. And they haven't had the community adoption that they would like. As I said, our tool, I think, is a better tool because we've been using it ourselves to help enterprises that have Microsoft support, help migrate them. And so we've actually been migrating companies ourselves with our tool. So I think it's got more real world usage in big applications. The tool supports C# today. VB support will be coming in the future. And how does it work with incompatible NuGet packages? It will, once again, it can't make code that doesn't work. So, just as you saw with me, because I had APIs that didn't exist anymore in the Baby Smash, I had to either remove them or change them. When will it support web forms? Sometime later this year. And thank you. You were right, Graham. I did miss that closing brace. I don't think web forms will be supported going forward. Web forms will never go out of support. So any technology that is in .NET Framework is part of Windows. Windows will not break Windows compatibility. We will continue to update, patch, and maintain .NET Framework forever. And so I will be well retired from Microsoft before web forms will not be supported moving forward, just to be very clear. We still support classic ASP, if you didn't know that. So the thing that was before .NET is still supported. We still support VB6, and none of those things are going to go away. I would not even be surprised if you see us do an ARM64 version of .NET Framework. As the computing industry moves into technologies like ARM, we will likely, if there's a requirement for that, we will make sure that there's a .NET Framework that runs on ARM64, and so even your web forms projects might run on ARM64 in the future. So the stuff that I commented out in the case of are they available in .NET 5? No. There's parts of ClickOnce that don't make sense in the modern world. And so we did not port those parts of ClickOnce when we brought ClickOnce over to .NET 5. We did not bring those things with you. And let's say I love Angular hot reload. This is just like hot reload for Angular or React or any of those types of things. And I see somebody answered the question. Will this hot reload work with Xamarin iOS apps? This hot reload is going to work with every app. Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, Maui, WinForms, WPF. It is basically built into the entire stack from the bottom up. It actually would work for a console application. You don't have to have any UI at all. Hot reload support for Xamarin, yes. UWP, no. Remember, UWP does not run on .NET Core or .NET 5, so there'll be no support for that. But WinUI will be available in .NET 6, and which is the future of UWP will be WinUI, and so you'll be able to run that on .NET 6, and you'll get that same support because it works everywhere. What else do we have here? I love all the support on the ClickOnce. I mean, the hot reload. I thought that was pretty cool. I love the comment about really going after the I use Node because it's lighter. But the funny thing about Node, it's lighter if you just write raw Node. As soon as you bring Express in, it looks kind of ugly. So we've been comparing Express apps to Node Express apps to Feather apps, and we think we're going to be a cleaner thing as you get more complicated. It would be nice to understand how hot reload works under the hood. Hot reload works under the hood using edit and continue. So the difference is edit and continue before required you to start the debugger. We don't require you to start the debugger. And the perf I showed you on the hot reload stuff is just the tip of the iceberg. Once it's actually inside of an IDE like Visual Studio, the speed will be even faster, because in my case, the file watcher had to see the file change. We had to recompile the file, then inject the change into the running application. In Visual Studio, we're actually compiling code as you type. And so we already will have the pre-compiled version of the new code and can inject it automatically. So it'll be even faster. And the question is, how will it work in a real world application? As long as you make small changes, it'll be instantaneous. If you like change a base type somewhere, in a class library that ripples through the entire application, you will not get that. It will not be as fast as what I showed, but it's going to be based on the size of the change that you make. But if you're making small incremental changes, it'll be awesome. If you're making a change that ripples across, a lot of projects, we're going to compile the whole thing. So, are there YouTube videos of the reviews where they talk about it in depth? If the question was about the hot reload tech, there are nothing yet. Expect that in May when the build conference comes. We'll have people like Stephen Tobe on our team do an in-depth of how we made all the hot reload tech work. But as I said, the hot reload is just pieces of it. Even the compiling an app for the first time is faster. Doing an incremental build will be faster. And we're using that to power the hot reload as well. So we're making all of it faster. The final name for Feather will be no name, because everything that was in Feather is just stuff that was already in ASP.NET, and so it will just be ASP.NET. But it means if you do an empty web application, you'll get something that looks very similar to the Feather application. Does this Feather work with dependency injection? Nope. Yes, everything that we have in .NET will work with Feather. One of the other questions we have is I didn't show it today, but Open API. Bertie Gaster on the team is like, this has to work with the Open API support. It'll work with the Open API support. You'll have to add a line of code to enable it, but it will work there. How does Maui compare to Flutter? Maui is very different than Flutter. Maui is actually, as you saw, it was using native toolkits. So Maui was using WinUI on Windows. It was using Mac Catalyst on the Mac. It was using it's using native UI, while Flutter actually paints all the pixels. So Flutter is basically a toolkit that has all of its own controls. It paints them 100%, and so there's both pros and cons. Flutter application will look the same on all devices, but it will not look native on all devices. You can build a Flutter application and decide you want it to look like iOS, but it will then look like iOS on Android. You can make it look like Android, but it will look like Android on iOS. And so that's one of the main differences. Maui does bring a new model for having owner-drawn controls. So it would be possible in the Maui world for somebody to build a toolkit of all their own controls, at which point you would have that same thing, but we're not going to build those ourselves today. I assume Maui doesn't support Linux in any way. Maui can easily support Linux, and we will we decided for .NET 6, our targets were going to be iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows. If Linux is something that's important enough to us, to customers, we will definitely consider Linux as another one. We could use GDK or whatever library to paint those pixels on Linux. I'll be honest with you, Linux has about 2.7% market share of the desktop market share. So it's really, we're going to go get the 97% first before we go there. And so we always hear people ask about Linux, but there really aren't a lot of users for it. So you get much more usage on Linux for a web API running in a container on your backend. Maui sounds like a major step forward from where Xamarin was. Do you still need a Mac to compile the code for iOS? I don't know if you knew this today. You don't need a Mac to compile code for iOS today. For development, you can take a Windows machine and plug an iPhone into it, and it'll just work. You only need a Mac to publish to the store, and that we can't change. So you can do full development, interloop, cycle, all of that on a Windows machine. You'll be able to do that with the Maui tech as well. But you'll always need, a native platform to get into the actual store. So you only need one. You don't need to have a whole room full of those things. And it says yes. Chris said yes. You need iOS to compile. You don't. And it said, and do you still need iOS and Android projects in the solution for the platform specific functionality? And the answer is no. So once the single project support is in Visual Studio, there'll be a section, there'll be a folder in your application. And inside of that folder, there'll be a folder called iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows. And any native code that you want for those platforms, you put in that folder, and we'll do all the magic for you. Can Blazor desktop application access USB ports? Blazor desktop applications can access anything that .NET can access on the machine. So you can talk to Bluetooth, you can talk to USB, you can talk to anything. Maui on Linux, I think I answered that. Very likely in the future if there's enough demand for it. How secure is it if the Blazor app is given access to a native OS calls? That's your call. So if you build a .NET application, or you build a C++ application, or you run VS Code, which is an Electron application, all of those have access to your entire machine. If you don't want to give that access, you can decide not to run as a desktop app and run in the sandbox of the browser. That is your call based on the application that you're building. But that's not that's your choice, not ours. AWS does require a login. That is true. Using those two. Yeah, I saw that somebody was saying I'm using Visual Studio to build and test iOS apps on Windows, but the iOS simulator is too slow in Windows. I don't recommend using the iOS simulator. I recommend using a native device. Go get yourself an older iPhone that's cheap and develop on that, and you will get pretty much the same performance you saw on the hot reload. You'll get that building an application. Why .NET 5 doesn't have backwards compatibility for .NET? It does have, for the most part. If you have a .NET Core 3.1 application, they likely will run in .NET 5. We have a page, and I can grab a link to that today. And that page basically shows you all the breaking changes between .NET Core 3.1 and .NET 5. For most customers, you can move an app. We had a huge customer that runs a sports website in the United States, and they ported their entire application to .NET 5 in about 30 minutes. But we'll never provide that 100% compatibility that we used to try in .NET Framework. We want to have the ability to, innovate in the stack. What's next for .NET beyond .NET v6? That's a great question. I will hold that for another call because we're almost out of time. So for some enterprises with ASP.NET MVC or Web API, having a mixed solution while migrating is a bit painful and ugly. So I'm not sure. You can use MVC, the old MVC and Web APIs in SDK style projects today. You just have to do some hand wringling to do it. It is supported. But we don't plan to bring the new SDK system to the old projects full tilt. It's just too much work. And how about .NET for Raspberry Pi? If .NET is run on Raspberry Pi since .NET Core 1.0, just to let you know. So it runs on Pi is great. Runs both 32-bit or 64-bit. Please stop supporting .NET Framework. It's making it hard to convince my bosses to move to .NET 5. .NET Framework will always be supported. Imagine the day that we decide to rip .NET Framework out of Windows and the world implodes. By the way, Windows doesn't work without .NET Framework in it. So if half of the tools in the control panel are built on .NET, and so that will not happen. You missed UWP. I did not miss UWP. UWP is going to be replaced by WinUI later this year. That's the version that will run on .NET 6. You have to realize that UWP runs on .NET Native, which is its own tech. And so it does not run on .NET Core. We never ported it to Core because we knew that WinUI was coming down the pipe. If you still support VB6 and classic ASP, We still run them. We don't certify them. With Blazor, do you see Microsoft adding any more core controls? I'm going to screw up the name here. I think the biggest thing you're going to see us add when it comes to controls in Blazor is going to be the Office team has a library that is either called Fluent or Fluid, and I always miss which one is which. You're going to see support for whichever one of those is the right one. You're going to see that support in .NET 6. And we're going to do that because we're going to enable some really cool things in .NET that I can't talk about yet. Watch us at the Build conference, and you'll see where we're doing using those controls. When is Build? Build will be, I think it's May 28th. If you just Google it, it's actually public today. It will be fully online again. Microsoft announced that we are doing all conferences, I think, online through the end of this year. So Build's going to be fully online. Is there a migration tool or support to move WCF service to gRPC? There are 2 projects in the open community that actually are very good at doing this. I will make sure that either Michael or Deepak have some links to those. I don't have them off the top of my head, but I'll send them to Michael and Deepak, and they can share those with you folks. Will Xamarin be made redundant by Maui? Xamarin will be replaced by Maui in the long run. We'll support Xamarin for 1 more year after we ship .NET 6 to give people plenty of time to convert their applications. We'll make that .NET Upgrade Assistant tool pretty seamlessly convert a Xamarin application to a Maui application, but Maui is the future of Xamarin. Can we use Maui Blazor for mobile development? You will be able to in the future. For .NET 6, we are supporting Blazor for Windows and Mac. Your mileage may vary on iOS or Android. I would think in .NET 7, we'll support iOS and Android 100%. A Feather style application has no startup class. While the demos I shared did not have one, you're welcome to put one back in, or you're welcome to put some of the code in the startup class directly back into your application, so you can actually do all the same styles of testing. Any support for Windows workflow in future versions of .NET? The answer for that will be no. But I don't know if people know this. There's a fully supported, or not a fully supported, there's a fully ported version of Windows workflow ported to .NET Core, which runs great on 3.1, 5, and it'll run on 6 as well. We actually worked with a enterprise company in Bellevue that built some enterprise tech. They needed that, so I open sourced more of .NET Framework so we could actually make that port available. I will get Michael and Deepak a link to that as well. I think it's called Core Workflow in GitHub. And for people that need it, it's there. What else is in here? Cool. I apologize, folks. I have to go run to another call at Microsoft now. So I have to kind of cut it off, but I hope this has been useful. I've had a lot of fun showing this. I thought we'd talk about .NET 5 as well, but we just spent the entire hour plus time on .NET 6, and I hope you enjoy those demos. You're some of the first people on the planet that have seen those demos. Michael and Deepak scheduled me at just the right perfect time to see the coolest stuff.
Cool. Thank you very much, Scott, for your time. We all understand that how busy your diary could be. Giving us your time, we do really appreciate. And thank you very much who attended the meetup. We had over 400 registration for tonight and well over 250 people attending. One of the biggest meetup that we have, online meetup that we have hosted. So yeah, thank you very much again, Scott.
If you folks want me back, I'd be happy to come back after Build and talk about all the stuff we show off at Build.
Yeah, 100%. I'll look to get that sorted. But yeah, amazing. Thank you very much, Scott. And yeah, thanks for everyone for attending. We'll send out a follow-up email with the link if you want to watch it back, and then some of the links you mentioned about it as well, Scott.
Thanks, folks.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Next
Cheers, everyone. Thanks,
Thank you.
27th of April, 7 p.m. Our guest speaker will be Mads Torgersen, and she is a lead designer at Microsoft, and they'll be delivering a session on C#10. And last but not the least, Michael and I are both the .NET recruiters. So if you are looking for a job for yourself, or if you are a client who are looking to hire .NET people in your team, please do reach out to us, either Michael or myself. Email address is d.sharma@ioassociates, and is m.collins@ioassociates.
Cool. Cheers. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, thanks, Dan.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for arranging.
Thank you.